Hey guys, okay, another video here. I guess I was gonna say movie, but video on adding rational numbers. This time my emphasis is gonna be on decimals. So we worked on fractions. Now let's talk about decimals, adding rational numbers. So here's the kind of problems I am talking about. We'll do an example here. Negative 4.92 plus negative 3.054. Those are the kind of problems I'm talking about. So when I see this example in this problem, my mind is thinking like I need to remember my integer rules. I'm adding negative numbers, so I have to remember what the rules are. So I'm thinking in my head about this mostly, trying to memorize these rules. When I see this problem, I see two negatives being added together, so I see the same signs. And with addition, when you're adding with the same signs, all you do is add the numbers and keep the signs. So all I got to do is continue to add and keep my answer negative. That's really all my process is. So when I go to add these numbers, it's decimals. So the easiest way for me to do decimals is to stack them up. I'm going to think about the 4.92, and I'm going to think about adding it to 3.054. 3.054. Notice something here. When I stack up my decimals, I am always very careful to line the decimal points up so they're right on top of each other. Because when I get my answer, the decimal should line up with it, just like these points line up. Also notice I'm ignoring the negatives. I did not put the negatives in here at all, because really all I got to do is add the numbers and keep the sign at the end. I might put a 0 here to help myself, or I might think of a 0 there to help myself when I add straight down, because 0 plus 4 is 4, 2 plus 5 is 7, 9 plus 0 is 9, 4 plus 3 is 7. So I'm getting my answer. It's 7.974. But because it was two negatives being added together, it's going to be a negative 7.974. That's the only difference. So when I write out my answer, negative 4.92 plus negative 3.054 is now equal to negative 7.974. And I have my final answer. Now, if you have a calculator, you can always check these and see if you're doing it correctly. There's really nothing wrong with checking your answers and making sure you know you're doing it right. So I'm going to grab a calculator here for a second, and I'm going to remind you that if you're using like one of our calculators from class, that the little negative sign is actually down here at the very bottom by the equals button. You want to be using this negative symbol to type things in. What I'm going to type in is our original problem. I'm going to type in negative 4.92 plus negative 3.054. And I'm going to see if I did this correctly. So equals negative 7.974. Awesome, we did it right. So easy to check on a calculator and make sure I'm doing things correctly. There's nothing wrong with that either. Let's try another one of these problems. So example 2. What is 4.7 plus negative 0.55? 4.7 plus negative 0.55. Okay, so let's try this. I see a positive number and I see a negative number. So in my mind, in my little thought bubble here, this time I'm seeing an addition problem, so adding, with different signs. And we know when the signs are different, you really want to subtract the values. So subtract is the key here. So instead of adding the decimals, I'm going to be thinking about subtracting the decimals. I'm going to think about 4.7 minus 0.55. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do regular subtraction, but I'm going to be sure these decimals are lined up, because when I get my answer, the decimal point needs to line up there as well. Now I might put a 0 here to help me out and think of it as 4.70. Same thing. Now I can't do 0 minus 5. I'm going to have to borrow from the 7 and make it a 6 to make this a 10. 10 minus 5 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. 4 minus 0 is 4. So I get this. I get 4.15, which is awesome. That's my answer. So 4.7 plus negative 0.55 equals 4.15. So 4.15 is the answer, but you need to decide, is it a positive 4.15 or a negative? Because when the signs are different, you have to choose. So which number value is bigger? Which one has the larger value? Well, 4.7 is larger, and it's positive, so the answer is positive. Now let's check it and make sure we feel like we're right. If we don't, not totally sure, let's type it in. So what do we got? 4.7 plus negative 0.55. 4.15. We did it right. So easy to check. Looks like we're doing everything correct. Here's what I want you to do. Pause the video, copy these down, and see if you can do this on your own correctly. Because if you can, then you know you're ready to move on. So pause the video, try A, try B, and then unpause it and check your answers. Okay, so I'm hoping you're unpausing the video now, and you're checking to see if you're ready. So let's see if you did it correctly. So we're going to add these two decimals together. One's positive, one's negative. It's a subtraction problem. We're going to take the bigger number, the 1.3, and we're going to subtract the 0.62, biggest number on top. I'm going to put a 0 here to help myself out. I'm going to borrow from the 3, make it a 2, make this a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 2 minus 6 I can't do, so I'm going to borrow from the 1, make it 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. Here's the decimal point all lined up. And 0 minus 0 is 0. So I get 0.68. So I'm going to write my final answer is 0.62 plus negative 1.3 equals 0.68. To decide if it's positive or negative, I'm going to look at the two values here. The bigger one was the negative number, so the answer is a negative 0.68. And I'm done. Here's B. B's kind of interesting. Two negative numbers, so we're going to add them and keep the answer negative. We're going to take the number 8, and we're going to add it to 2.45. Now don't forget, 8 is technically 8.00. We just don't write that very often, but when I'm adding it, might be helpful. So 0 plus 5 is 5, 0 plus 4 is 4. Here's the decimal point all lined up. 8 plus 2 is 10, so I get a value of 10.45, meaning this equals 10.45, so I'm going to write it down here. Negative 8 plus negative 2.45 equals 10.45. And because we were adding two negative numbers, we kept adding it together, and we keep the sign. Negative 10.45 is my final answer. And I'm done. I hope you got them both right. If you didn't, I hope you found your mistake in the process, and that kind of helps you out a little bit to learn from your mistake. All right, thanks guys. Bye.